It's chapter 23, and I am happy because I am done with the book, and I am sad because I am done with the book. Thank you for being here for all of these, even if it's just your first one. For the last time, welcome to Chapter by Chapter. The final chapter starts off by discussing Tommy and Kathy's relationship. Without the hope of deferrals, the relationship slowly alters. For one thing, Kathy notices that though Tommy carried on with his animal pictures, he became cagey about doing them in my presence. It makes sense that Tommy has found solace in drawing, but divorced from the hope of a longer life with Kathy, he's again embarrassed by his art. Beyond that, Kathy starts to sense a deeper rift between them. 2 sentences in the chapter's second paragraph summarize this suspicion. At first, Kathy tells us, Tommy tended to identify himself with the other donors at the center. And then, after watching Tommy with these donor friends, I sensed for the first time that day something close to resentment on his part at having to come away with me. Kathy even notices some resentment in herself. After watching Tommy and his friends, Kathy feels nostalgic over her time with her friends at Hailsham. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that she feels a little jealous of Tommy and his new group. Now that a deferral is out of the question, Kathy and Tommy's different groupings, carer and donor, are set, and the divide between them is almost as great as that between the living and the dead. Little things like laundry bring this divide out, but the big defining moment comes when Tommy receives his notice for his 4th donation. So the 4th donation is different than all the rest. It's the last, official one. Kathy has seen countless donors get this news. She's good at navigating it and helping them talk about it, prep for it, ignore it even. She's not like some of the others, she refuses to celebrate it. Nonetheless, it's not an easy bit of news to get. Tommy and Kathy handle all of this in stride though, for the beginning anyway. They even grow closer. But then, one conversation, one question comes up that even a carer of Kathy's caliber is unprepared to face, especially with the person she loves. Tommy asks her, "You know why it is, Kath, why everyone worries so much about the 4th? It's because they're not sure they'll really complete. If you knew for certain you'd complete, it would be easier, but they never tell us for sure." Kathy says, "I'd been wondering for a while if this would come up, and I'd been thinking about how I'd respond. But when it did, I couldn't find much to say. So I just said, it's just a lot of rubbish, Tommy. Just talk. Wild talk. It's not even worth thinking about." But Tommy would have known I had nothing to back up my words. He'd have known, too, he was raising questions to which even the doctors had no certain answers. You'll have heard the same talk, how maybe after the 4th donation, even if you've technically completed, you're still conscious in some sort of way. How then you find there are more donations, plenty of them, on the other side of that line. How there are no more recovery centers, no carers, no friends. How there's nothing to do except watch your remaining donations until they switch you off. It's horror movie stuff, and most of the time, people don't want to think about it. Not the white coats, not the carers, and usually not the donors. But now and again, a donor will bring it up, as Tommy did that evening, and I wish now we'd talked about it. And it's not long after this, in an overgrown, uncared for, fenced-in field, not unlike, yet distinctly different from the field at Hailsham where Kathy first showed Tommy a little kindness, that Tommy says, "Kath, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I've been thinking it over a lot. Kath, I think I ought to get a different carer." As Tommy goes on, he brings up a lot about not wanting Kathy to see him like the way he'll be in the end, about how Ruth wanted Kathy to get a deferral with him, not necessarily see him to that end. But what really sends Kathy reeling is when he says, Ruth would have understood. She was a donor, so she would have understood. I'm not saying she'd necessarily have wanted the same thing for herself. If she'd been able to, maybe she'd have wanted you as her carer right to the end. But she'd have understood about me wanting to do it differently. Kath, sometimes you just don't see it. You don't see it because you're not a donor. Kathy is left to feel divided off, yet again, not just from all the other donors, but from him and Ruth. Obviously, this strikes a chord with Kathy. Most of the novel has been about the shifting dynamics between her, Tommy, and Ruth, and for most of that time, Kathy has been the one left to feel like she's on the outside. When they get back up to the room, they both apologize, and Tommy tells her, "I don't want us to fight again, but I want them to fight again. As a reader, I want Kathy to fight to stay with him. I don't want her to take Tommy's advice to become a donor. I want her to fight to stay a carer or to make a change or to do anything. I want them to fight this system. But I have to remind myself that they have, and they're tired." As Tommy muses on 282, "I keep thinking about this river somewhere, with the water moving really fast, and these two people in the water trying to hold on to each other, holding on as hard as they can. But in the end, it's just too much. The current's too strong. They've got to let go, drift apart." That's how I think it is with us. There's a lot of painful truth in those lines. As Tommy says, "It's a shame, Kath, because we've loved each other all our lives. But in the end, we can't stay together forever. It's a shame." As we move closer to the end, Ishiguro gives Kathy and Tommy a rare moment of peace. They talk, they spend time together creating art and reading books. They're intimate. Things go well. But one paragraph later, it's Kathy's last visit. She comes up to Tommy's room, a little surprised not to see decorations. Whether because it's December or his time to complete, I don't know. But like Kathy, I too am glad there's not decorations up. Their conversation is difficult, but not because of the impending death or pain. As Kathy tells us, "I think we were reluctant to start any new conversation we'd regret not being able to finish properly. That's why there was a kind of emptiness to our talk that day." But then Kathy brings up an interesting question. "Tommy, are you glad Ruth completed before finding out everything we did in the end?" This question is essentially as much about them as it is Ruth. Was it worth learning the truth, fighting for love, or is ignorance bliss? They don't really get into any of that, but later Kathy thinks about the question and tells us, "A part of me keeps wishing we'd somehow been able to share everything we discovered with Ruth. Okay, maybe it would have made her feel bad, made her see whatever damage she'd once done to us couldn't be repaired as easily as she hoped, and maybe, if I'm honest, that's a small part of my wishing she knew it all before she completed. But in the end, I think it's about something else. Something much more than my feeling vengeful and mean-spirited. Because as Tommy said, she wanted the best for us at the end. And though she said that day in the car I'd never forgive her, she was wrong about that. I've got no anger left for her now. When I say I wish she'd found out the whole score, it's more because I feel sad at the idea of her finishing up different from me and Tommy. The way it is, it's like there's a line with us on one side and Ruth on the other when it's all said and done. I feel sad about that, and I think she would too if she could see it." In the end, I think that the peace she makes with Ruth is one of the most beautiful parts of this whole novel. And with that, we're here. Tommy and Kathy's last goodbye. It's a callback to the football pitch at the start of the novel. It's adorable. It's heartbreaking. And it's not going to be read out loud because I don't want to cry into the internet. But I'll say this. It doesn't feel contrived, dramatic, or over-sentimental, even if we might wish it was. It just feels true. The final section of the novel comes full circle, back to Kathy driving around the countryside, catching occasional glimpses of the phantom Hailsham in her mind's eye. And much of this section focuses on memory, how Kathy, who will soon be a donor, will carry her memories of Hailsham, of Ruth, and of Tommy safely in my head, and that'll be something no one can take away. Kathy does allow herself one indulgence, though. She drives to Norfolk, where all the lost things end up. But not the lost people. She drives on, reveling in the flat fields of nothing. After a while, she stops the car, and here, Ishiguro leaves us with the novel's final image. Kathy looks out at acres of plowed earth, but a fence keeps her from walking into them. This fence, the only thing to break the wind for miles, carries some significant symbolism. All their lives, they've been fenced in. Hailsham has a physical fence, the cottages and beyond, bureaucratic and legal. The fence also catches all sorts of rubbish, which I'm sure is a callback to Ruth's monologue on 166 during their trip to find her possible. Like Kathy, Ruth, Tommy, and everyone else society sees as lesser, this rubbish is caught by the fence, stopped before it can find freedom, or at the very least self-governance. Of course, fields have also come up a few times, often when Kathy was with Tommy, and perhaps that's why Kathy tells us, "I half closed my eyes and imagined this was the spot where everything I'd ever lost since my childhood had washed up, and I was now standing here in front of it, and if I waited long enough, a tiny figure would appear on the horizon across the field, and gradually get larger until I'd see it was Tommy, and he'd wave, maybe even call." The fantasy never got beyond that. I didn't let it. And though the tears rolled down my face, I wasn't sobbing or out of control. I just waited a bit, then turned back to the car to drive off to wherever it was I was supposed to be. I think it's really easy to see this final image as Kathy's surrender to her fate. That even after everything's been taken from her, she still just conforms to whatever it is she's supposed to do. And certainly there's a 1984-like quality to the end of this novel. And if you haven't read 1984, what I mean by that is it's depressing. But even though the end of this novel is depressing, there's a glimpse of light. Kathy refuses to let go of her memories. She's chronicled them for us, after all, in this novel. And though she now stands before a fence, alone and near the end of it all, I'm reminded of another time her, Tommy, and Ruth worked together to get past a similar fence, one that didn't stop them on their way to the boat. Even though it wasn't easy, even though life threw everything at them, including death, Kathy held on to them, in vacant fields, in hospital beds, in memories of times long gone, and she is never letting go. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video, and for the people who have watched other videos or even all the videos, it has been so incredibly humbling to see how many people have responded to these. No doubt my channel would not even be monetized right now were it not for this series. So it has been an entire year, and I know it's been a little more than a year, and I know a number of you have been waiting for videos and probably finished your reading or study of the novel before I could get to the final chapters or the chapters you needed. But I really appreciate you sticking around, and it's been awesome for my channel. And I'm doing one more Never Let Me Go video. I've been planning this for a long time. It's going to be a culmination of the entire novel where I talk about themes and spoilers and all sorts of other stuff that I haven't talked about in these chapter specific videos. So if you're interested in one more Never Let Me Go video, I already have the script written for it, so keep an eye open. It will be coming relatively soon. And then after that, I'm going to move on to other works for the foreseeable future. Thank you so much for watching. Happy reading, and I'll see you next time.